Don't engage alone. We do this together.
Yeah!
Yeah!
We got it! We got
New 52 booklet.
it! Somebody clip this.
Welcome to Comics League. I'm Jared, and today we are talking about Halo Season 2. So I waited about a week or two before I address Season 2 because I want to give everyone a chance to watch it so no one can legitimately claim I spoiled it because you had your time. Now, here's what I'm going to say here. And the purpose of this video is to really talk about the discourse surrounding season 2 and talk about why it may be like a little too harsh, particularly on this season. Season 1 had its many problems, but season 2, I would argue, fixes a lot of those issues. Allow me to explain before you click off. So first off, one of the issues that I saw on Twitter when I was watching this was that the show was not accurate to the way the flood infection works, because in the show, so the flood shows up in the show, and the way it works is it takes a while for the infection to work in the show, like with the spores and such. Now, what people were critiquing is saying that in the games, it takes like 3 seconds for a being to be turned into the flood. Ignoring the fact that that's for gameplay, let's take this on a purely factual standpoint. You are right that in the games it takes that long, but let's examine the total context of that encounter. First off, in the show, in season 2, it's spores, not an entire infection form. And I'll have an infection form on the screen. It's not a whole infection, because the whole infection, I believe, is contains a lot of flood spores. So take that into account. Add on to that the fact that the flood is that these were old flood spores. Now, why do I bring up their age? Because in The Flood, a Bungie era novel, for those who don't know, The Flood is the novelization of Halo 1. So in this game, we get to find out what happens to Private Jenkins, who is turned into the Flood in one of the cutscenes. Now, what we discover is that because he was infected with an infection form that was like millions of years old, in other words, very, 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 very old, it wasn't as effective, and he was still semi-conscious in that. So with that kind of explains, again, the age kind of explains why the flood in this show and in the lore either take a while or don't infect correctly as perceived. So that's where I'll go with that. Ignoring the gameplay elements, because really the reason why it takes them like 3 seconds to be infected is because you can have a mission where a ship crashes on the flood and on the Earth, and then the flood's like everywhere. So there is that. Hey, what's up, everyone? Just wanted to add real quick, because I forgot to bring this up when I originally recorded the video. When one more point about the flood, when the Forerunners first actually, it wasn't Forerunners. When ancient humans first encountered the flood, here's the way that encounter went. So the ancient, more or less, the ancient humans found this ship that was a derelict ship that had this like weird dust. So what the humans did is they fed the dust to their livestock, and what would happen is first the livestock got very like docile. Then they started to get aggressive. Then they started to sprout tentacles, and all this, there's like a significant time difference between each of these changes. So even there, to back up my previous point, the whole taking a while for, like, say, the tentacle to come out of the neck, that is lore accurate. So just wanted to bring that up. Number two, now here's the other thing that this season does not get as much credit for. It was trying to get Chief as lore accurate as possible, because that was 100% one of the critiques that came from season one, is that he wasn't acting like Chief. Now, the other critiques that link to this is that it included Quan, it included this, included this. I think that some fans wanted a complete reboot to treat it like season one never existed, and they weren't going to do that. So the new showrunner had to work with what he had. And so what he was able to do is take the arc that Chief was on, take where Chief was at the end of season one, and put him now more into the game Chief, because at the end of this season, this season takes him from, for lack of a better term, Master Cheeks, and turns him into Master Chief. That's what he is. So it takes him, and it takes him from his arc all the way through until he's the game Chief that we know and love from, like, the cutscenes and the games, in other words. Third point I want to bring up is that one of the critiques is that he's not in his armor a lot in this show, or he takes off his helmet a lot. Now, counterpoint in Bungie era books, I say Bungie era so people can't claim that, like, that's just a 343 invention to explain this. No, it's not. In the extended lore, Chief takes off his helmet and is outside of his armor a lot. In fact, they even make a point of it in, like, the books, commenting about how, like, all the Spartans have pale skin, because yes, they are in the armor most of the times, but there are times where they have to be out of it and they have the pale skin. And we've seen, and by the way, he's had his helmet off in the games. It's just we never saw his head, as in the case of the first cutscene of Halo 2.
You know how expensive this gear is, son?
Tell that to the Covenant.
Plus Halo 4, the legendary ending, spoiler alert, he takes off his helmet, you can kind of see the eyes.
The reclamation has already begun.
So there was that. And so that's what I'm going to address, particularly in here. So in terms of point four, 4 and 5 are really linked, but I'll start with this. The writing was much better for this season, I think. And they treated Halo more like the war movie than season 1 did. Because one of my complaints of season 1 was that the Covenant did not feel like a threat. Because remember, we only saw, like, a planet Glass and, like, the Covenant just, like, hanging out. Occasionally they would kill humans. That was my other complaint of Halo season 1, is that there was barely any action, but I'll address that in point 5. But in this one, the whole thing is the Covenant and then the Flood. So the whole thing is, like, the Covenant show up, they Glass reach, so we see immediately how powerful the Covenant is, and they just overwhelm. So there's that. Then number 5. This is a much more action-packed season. Like, again, to reiterate what I said in 4, my number one complaint of season 1, in addition to, like, a lot of stuff, was that there was only, like, 3 episodes that had action in it. In this one, of 8 episodes, there's about 2 that don't have action. And I'm willing to take that compromise because I get that, like, not every episode can be action piece. Has to be a little time to breathe. And there's plenty of times in, like, the books and the games where there's no action. So I understand that. It's just when you look at the ratio is off in season 1, because there's no legitimate reason why there should only be 3 episodes that have action in it that are about, let's say the action scenes are roughly 10 minutes each put together. Let's just say that for argument's sake. I think it was like 9 episodes. Out of a 9-hour show, 10 minutes is action. Based on Halo, I'm sorry, that doesn't work. Where with this one, mostly every episode had some form of action, had some fight scene, had some military component, because, like, Pablo Schreiber said when he was discussing the show, is that the showrunner showed up, to take over, and he basically said, "I'm writing a war movie," and that's what he did. He wrote a 8-episode war movie.
So we have there's a new showrunner for the second season. His name's David Weiner, and he came in with a real clear point of view. And the first thing he said to me when he showed up is that he wanted to make an 8-episode war movie. And for me, when you're making Halo, that's what it should be, right? The stakes should it should be real.
Now, again, there were a lot of people that upset with how they did like the fall of Reach with like the Spartans being out of their armor. And I'm like, no, okay, fine. I understand that. It's not like a counterpoint, but the point that I will bring up is that we've seen the same way the Reach invasion has played out many, 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 many times in like the books, the fall of Reach, the animated cartoon, the comics, the video game. It's kind of neat to see like this new perspective on it, because the idea is that the Spartans are more than just their armor. So I understood what they were going for. Now, we can disagree if it was a good arc, a good decision or not, but I'm just saying I understand from a story perspective why they went in this direction. So that's what I'm going to leave it. What do you guys think of Halo Season 2? Is it better than Season 1? And will you give Season 3 a chance? I personally think so, and I look forward to Season 3, but hey, to each their own. And luckily, even if you hate the show, we still have all these games and books to engage in. So it's not like we lost Halo content. So stay heroic, everyone. I'll be sure to see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye-bye.